Hi guys, this is Dormouse03, and this is The Evil Within, Akumu difficulty, Chapter 11. So I would say that this chapter is one of the most difficult and irritating chapters in this game. You know, barring difficulty, regardless of difficulty, this chapter I find to be one of just the most irritating to get through. Which is a shame because I really like the level design. I really like the city and how they've sort of put all kinds of things together, like this carousel from the last chapter. And I think that it's a cool area, and the factory with like all the mannequins and stuff toward the end of the chapter is pretty awesome. But it's the enemies on this level that make it so darn frustrating. And so I'm gonna get into that in a bit, but first, the first thing that you want to do is get the statue here. And it's a weird little area because you fall off of that car into the water, and it feels like you should be able to knock the statue, but I wasn't able to do that, so I'm just going to shoot it with one of my pistol bullets, which is okay, because once again, we have quite a pretty decent stock of ammunition and resources and stuff, which is very, very good. So we're just going to pick up that key and be able to move forward. So yeah, I was saying the enemies on this level. This is where you start having enemies with automatic weapons and sniper rifles. Although you've had enemies with sniper rifles before, and you've had some enemies with the like pistol or sawn-off shotgun before, but none of these are as irritating as the ones that start to show up in this level with the like M4s or, you know, assault rifles, right? It's just, I don't know. I don't understand why these horror games feel like they need to have these enemies. I can't understand why they feel like that's necessary because the monsters themselves should be scary enough, you know, and I get that they try to have a progression, that they try to have an escalation of the difficulty of the game, and that it's easy to do that if you start adding in weapons. You know, because obviously something with a weapon that can shoot you from a distance with pinpoint accuracy is going to be more difficult to get by than, you know, one that's just going rah at you. But I just feel like they don't belong in this kind of game, and that's just my opinion. So there was your next map fragment and the magnum, which is very, very, very important to grab that. And the magnum I'm going to use a couple of times before we get to the end, but for the most part I'm saving it for the end. And feel free to use it a little bit more than I do to get you out of some certain situations, but you want to have, well, depending on how much you upgrade it. So I will talk about my strategy for the ending right now. So there's going to be a double keeper fight. So there's 2 keepers at the end, and if you want to make that section as easy as possible, you will use the magnum to kill them. And so if you fully upgrade the magnum's damage so that it has 200 damage, 3 magnum shots will kill each one of those keepers. If you don't upgrade it at all, 6 magnum shots will kill each one of those keepers. So depending on how much you have upgraded the magnum, it depends on, you know, how many bullets you want to save up if you want that to be an easy fight. So you need to have minimum 6 and maximum 12 magnum shots to take down both of those keepers very quickly and make that just a really easy fight there at the end. But I'm going to stop talking about the end right now and start talking about this. That guy generally doesn't turn around. I don't know how he got his heightened super sense just then, but he'll usually let you sneak kill him. But it didn't work out quite that way for me this time, and so I had to just fire a few shots and, you know, miss a little bit and get a little bit angry. You know how it goes. So then there are these two guys. That one gets shot in the face. This one I think I'm going to also shoot in the face, or try to. And then there's one more enemy that you have to deal with in this area, and he's going to be having some dinner. And how he doesn't get... This is a thing about these enemies, right? Like, I guess he's distracted because he's eating. But it's just so weird that, like, I was standing over there, they were aware of me, I was shooting off all sorts of bullets, and this guy over here was just still having his lunch, you know. La-da-da, eating some brains, whatever. So, in any case, that's those enemies taken out. And now, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna plant a trap here, and it's sort of a waste, that trap, I think, because I was leaving it there in the hopes that it would get the enemy with the machine gun that stands up there after I hit this door. But what actually ends up happening is I think it gets just a regular enemy. So I'm going to go ahead and put my Magnum on, because I'm going to use a couple of shots of it right now to take out a few of the irritating gun enemies. And this section right here, it's just annoying, because if there had been a checkpoint right here, it would have been fine. But because there was no checkpoint, you have to go all the way back. Yeah, see, the trap just got a regular guy that was climbing up on the box. If you die in this part, you have to go all the way back to where you fought the firefighter guy with the tank on his back at the very beginning of this section. And that's just, it's too far. It's too far to have to go back on a section where you can die instantly. So that guy took a shotgun shell to the chest like a boss. So use the Magnum to kill him. Things are falling on my head. How am I not dead? How am I not dead? I don't know. I'm going to try to shoot this guy. The fence is going to block my shot. I finally get him. And move forward. And if you can make it through this door and run, you'll be okay. But that section, it'll probably take, again, as many things do on this difficulty, a couple of tries to get that to happen just right. But once you get right here, you're safe, and they'll go back, and you won't have to deal with any of them anymore. But that section, it's not that bad. It's just annoying because of the amount of time you lose if you mess up during that second part, where there are the guys that turn up with guns, and it's so easy to mess up there because they have guns. And there are a lot of them. I mean, there are 2 guys with guns, I believe, but there are a lot of other enemies that are coming after you. And I don't know, it's my feeling that I didn't want to try to kill them all, although you could, and it would be a little bit slower going and whatnot, but I didn't want to waste the resources to kill all of those enemies there, because I just didn't feel like it was worth it. And therefore, you know, you have to put the guys with guns down very quickly. And you saw how the one just took one to the chest. It was unbelievable. But right there's a little crossfade, and I had to go back and get the statue because I died in the next part, and the checkpoint lost my progress for getting this key. So if you break the statue here in the water, you can't pick it up because the water's not deep enough for you to stand up. You can't touch the bottom. The water's not deep enough. The water is too deep for you to stand up. But if you push it over to the car, you can stand and you can pick it up because you can stand in the water that's right in front of the car. So you just need to push it over to a point where Sebastian can stand up, and at that point he can pick up the key. So here is the section with the fish creatures. I think they're called Shigos? I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, but they're like, gosh, I forget what the little bestiary said about them. But they're another manifestation of people who have died in the STEM machine. But I feel like they died in a certain way. It may be suicides? But that doesn't sound quite right either. So, but they're some of the participants who, or subjects, or coerced subjects, whatever they are, that got killed within this machine. So that part right there is fairly easy with them. There's a part coming up that's a little bit more tricky. You just want to time your jumps correctly on that one. So this section right here, this is the first place where the Ruvik lookalikes show up on regular difficulty. They obviously have shown up before this point on this difficulty. And I'm moving through here because I want to try to pick up some things and burn a couple of these bodies before they spawn in. There's going to be 2 of them here. There's some magnum rounds in that case right there, which is a good thing. That means that you can definitely not feel bad about spending a couple of magnum shots on these guys right here. And so this one I'm going to try to put down right away. Put a shot into him. I don't think he's dead, so make sure you burn him. And then I'm going to use a freeze bolt on the second one, because a freeze bolt will take him down. So that was 1 magnum round and 1 freeze bolt, and then you run around a little bit until it clears up, and you know, that didn't go too bad.
Some kind of fake?
So yeah, that part can be tricky though, just because if both of those guys are have their little claws of death attack going at the same time, it's just woof, very, very hard to get away from. So I would definitely agree with the using of, you know, whatever you feel like your best tools are for disposing of them. You could use 2 freeze bolts right there. You can also use a harpoon shot to knock the first one over and then light him up with a match. That works as well. Or you can use the magnum on both. It just depends on how you want to spend your ammunition right now. So that is that little section down. And don't worry about any of the other enemies at all, because once you kill the 2 fake Ruviks, everybody else will die. So focus on those 2, take them out, and do not get distracted by anybody else that's on this section right here. So we have a part coming up that I'm going to go ahead and start talking about, even though you go back into the asylum and have a chance to upgrade some stuff before it happens. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about it because it's horrific. I hate this section coming up. It just feels so unfair and ridiculous. So basically, it's a bunch of waves of the most annoying enemies in this game, which are the guys with assault rifles and guys with explosive crossbow bolts that seem to just have infinite crossbow bolts and fire so quickly, and guys with dynamite. And then there's a sniper up on top too. So just it's terrible, guys. It's terrible. And this is, I think, like the next gauntlet that you really have to be able to get through in order to make it through this difficulty, right? So like there was the gauntlet on the beginning of chapter 6. There were some things that were fairly tricky in chapter 10 with both of the Lara and the Amalgam Alpha boss fights, but this right here I think is harder than those boss fights. This is your next, like, if you can make it through this, you'll be doing really well as far as making it through this game. So just be prepared to die several times. If you make it through your first try, then that is fantastic, because I don't know, sometimes random things just happen and it becomes pretty irritating. But we are about to get to it, and my biggest tip for this is to make sure you use frostbolts and to have your frostbolt upgraded as much as possible to get the maximum radius of people getting frozen. Just so you have a reference, mine is fully upgraded at this point. My freeze bolt is fully upgraded, and I did that on purpose because of parts like this. So you'll see the radius that's on it. If yours is different, it's possible that it's because of the upgrades. So just be aware of that and plan ahead, like I did, to upgrade that particular one. The shock bolt and the freeze bolt are the ones that I would say prioritize, and the flash bolt a couple of times as well, because you want people to like have more people getting frozen, to have things that are shocked stay shocked for longer, and for people to get flashed to stay flashed for longer. And like that's what you want to be able to happen. So there's a sniper that will appear up here after like 3 waves of enemies coming out of the area that they're going to start coming out of in a second. But if you use a flash bolt right there, you can get him to appear and then miss shooting him like I do. So he's at a really just not great spot. But once he moves and gets over to his point where he's going to try to start shooting you, it'll be better. So 2 shots with the sniper rifle should kill him, and then you don't have to worry about him when you are trying to deal with these waves of enemies, because the waves of enemies on their own are very, very annoying, and trying to worry about these guys with him makes things just really bad. So you'll see I get my freeze bolts on, and when the door opens, I shoot a bolt. And I try to do it sort of in the front middle of where the guys are. And because I have my freeze bolt upgraded, I have a little bit more range. You know, I have a little bit more leeway as to where the bolt can go to get all the enemies. Sometimes, and especially if you don't have it upgraded, it will not get all of the enemies. There will be 1 or 2 of them that'll make it and not get frozen. But if things go well and you have it upgraded, you should be able to get everybody with 1 bolt, just like I'm doing. After several waves, there's going to be guys with assault rifles. These guys right here, there they are, they get frozen. And then I believe there's one more wave. And after the 2 guys with assault rifles, there's going to be another guy that sort of hangs back inside and shoots you. So you want to stay crouched and toss some grenades in there. Because the grenades are one of the only things that you can use while you're crouched. And you don't want to risk getting out of cover to try to shoot that guy, because it's just, he can hit you. You know, and if he hits you, you have to go back and do that whole thing again. And it didn't look like much because everything went perfectly for me on that particular run, but it's not easy. It is not as easy as it looked just then, because to be able to get the timing and placement right on all of those bolts and all those enemies, geez, they're just super annoying. So after you do that section, I would say that is the most annoying part. And now this part right here, I don't think is too bad. This guy, he fires 2 shots, so be careful of that. He will usually shoot the trap that's in front of this barricade, so don't let that scare you. And just try to use your cover and listen for him to shoot twice before you move. And so as soon as he finishes firing, I'm going to use the stairs here as cover, and then you can take this guy out however you like, but I'm going to choose to use a flash bolt because I think that that's a really clean way of getting these gun enemies, because you don't have to put yourself into their line of fire. So that's him taken out, and you can take a minute to breathe and run through and pick up a bunch of stuff before turning the crank. And now you don't have to do this. You could wait until after you get through the next part to try to do this, because I don't think you get a checkpoint here. And so if you mess up the next section where there are 2 or 3 like regular enemies, I think one of those is a big guy, and 2 assault rifle enemies. And so if you mess up that part, which, you know, since everything can kill you very easily, it's possible that you would mess that up, then you'll have to go back and do this entire thing again. So you don't have to spend the time right now to pick up stuff. You could pick it up after you know that you've made it through this section, but I decided to go ahead and pick up stuff then. What I'm going to do here is, after I turn this crank, I'm going to do my best to put as many shots into the 2 gun enemies as I can as they're coming down the ladder. They got stuck a little bit, but here they come. 2 shots should kill each one of these guys. So that was 2 shots on the first one, and then the other one moves over to the left, and we don't have to worry about him. And use this ladder here to do what I just did, to sort of put someone down and put a match on him, and hopefully that gets the next person coming up the ladder. So I think that's all of your standard enemies, and then there's just the one assault rifle guy who is hiding over behind that block right there. So we're gonna put a shot into him and another shot, and he goes down. And that is it. You know, the sound of the generator sounds very much like the chainsaw from The Sadist. And sometimes when I have one of those generators going, I worry unnecessarily that there's a chainsaw enemy that is about to cut me in half. And I've noticed this happening as I've played through the game again. But don't worry, there's no chainsaw guy on this part unless you're playing the super secret crazy mode that doesn't exist, where all enemies have chainsaws. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Anyway, this is the end of this video, and I will see you in the next part. Thanks for watching, guys.